Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your ticker guy coming at you from wonderful Niceville. So much to talk about in so little time. Listen, I want to get to the point at hand, which is Wall Street, the banks, and all this craziness that's been going on, and who's really responsible, and whether or not these people really do us a public service or not. Let's start with that, because Dennis Kneale made a big deal about us picking on all of these lions of capitalism, that is, the bankers. The argument he made is that they have made us all much wealthier in America because, well, they make all this money, right? Do they really make money, though, folks? Or do they steal money? Well, legally, but, well, most of the time legally anyway, right? All right, let's talk about it for a second. Let's say that we got a guy over here, he's got some money to lend. He's got $40, all right? This guy over here wants to borrow it. So he's going to loan him the cash, but that's not free, right? Because there's a risk this guy may not pay him back. Remember, this guy over here, originally, this was his capital, and he wants to make sure he gets it back. So he sets an interest rate. And let's say over the course of a few years, that interest is going to be $11. All right, now how's he going to get that $11? He's going to have to go out and work. He's going to have to earn more than the 40, so he can not only pay the $40, but the $11 in interest. So over the course of, say, 5 years, that happens, and this money makes its way back into this guy's hand, and he's a happy kid. That actually is, in fact, a way of making money, because this guy over here, he went out and he worked his field, he built a car, he did something productive with his time for which he earned a living, and part of that money went over here. So we had a transfer payment from the guy who actually went out and did some work to the guy who had some capital that he was willing to loan out for a while. Nothing wrong with this at all. This is interest. This is the foundation of interest, and it is why the banking system is in existence, is to bring those people together. But what does the bank do in the process? Well, that's really simple, guys. You see, as this money goes marching back, that 10 spot just kind of disappeared. Where'd it go? Into Goldman Sachs' pocket. Now, this guy only gets $41 instead of $51. These guys got a lot of $10 bills, and they went off and bought yachts in the Hamptons with it. And that would be bad enough, but it doesn't end there, of course. The other problem is that banks like Goldman went around telling people that these were perfectly good securities, while at the next desk they were shorting them, which is a declaration that they are worth less. Or is it worthless? We're never really going to get the answer to that question, is it? But it is a fairly clear indication that they didn't believe in the value of what they were selling. The important point to take away from this, ladies and gentlemen, is that the more people get their hands on things, the more grift is taken out of the transaction stream. We don't generate more wealth that way. All we do is redistribute it. Anytime that you see these people saying that the captains of industry, these Wall Street bankers, make money for America, that's just a flat-out lie. If I want to borrow money from you, the most efficient way for that transaction to take place and the lowest cost for everybody involved is for you and I to sit across the table, cut a deal, shake hands, and do that transaction. Everybody who gets in the middle takes something out of it. We need a banking system because that kind of face-to-face transaction is impractical. But what we don't need is 47,000 different layers of convolution laid upon one another for the simple reason of trying to find a way to peel off yet one more dollar bill out of the transaction stream and give it to a bunch of people so they can have a yacht and a fancy house in the Hamptons. Cut the BS, guys. There's no actual wealth being generated here. All you're doing is shuffling money around and taking it from other people who would otherwise have it. That's all it is, all right? That's banking in a nutshell. Anybody that doesn't understand this needs to go back to school. All right. Now let's get to Tim Geithner, because he did a particularly smarmy job tonight. I couldn't believe this CNBC BS. Not only did they filter everybody who came in that place, but they didn't even get to ask questions because Tim just rambled and rambled and rambled and refused to answer, which is what he always does. But let's get to what he didn't and did say, because there are some problems there. Okay? He's claiming that the financial system has been saved from doom. Well, not so fast. Not so fast. Fed Vice President Kohn was out tonight with a statement that ought to chill you a little bit. He says, if the Fed takes credit losses in this huge balance sheet, they might have to go to Congress with their hat in their hand, and that could compromise the Fed's independence. Well, wait a minute. If the Fed takes credit losses, I thought the Fed couldn't take credit losses because it was haircutting everything appropriately and issuing short-term loans that it could regurgitate back to the people who borrowed from it if there was a problem. Mr. Kohn, are you telling me that Bernanke's been lying? Oh, don't we need this audit, you know? I think that's Bill 1207. Yeah, I think that's the one. Why don't we have the truth about all this stuff? Why do we have a Fed vice president talking about the Fed taking credit losses, something that is not supposed to be possible if the Federal Reserve is operating within the law? What's going on here, folks? Credit losses? Speaking of credit losses, I want to present this chart to you tonight as well. This is very interesting. It's an update of the one that I presented the other day. We have some new data. We have the new Fed Z1 information and we have the G19, and you're going to notice a couple of things. First is that income has essentially flatlined, but secondly, we now have more proof that credit contraction is occurring because consumers have hit the wall. And the government is trying to prop up the game by borrowing like a drunken sailor. It's obvious from looking at this chart, folks. There's no other interpretation of this, and it's not working. The bond market is saying quite clearly that we are entering into, if we're not already in, a deflationary credit collapse. Trying to prop up the system by borrowing more and more money at the federal government level is stupid and wrong. Geithner didn't want to talk about that tonight. He tried to dodge every question leading to that. So has everybody else. Well, there's a problem here, folks. This chart says quite clearly we can't ignore this problem anymore. We need to face these losses. Americans are going to have to deal with the realities. So is our government. And the sooner we do it, the better. I'm your ticker guy, and that's my opinion.